I have no volume from you. Can you give me a check, please? Mike, can you do me a favor and give me a check, please?
I said, when I was gonna go select one game earlier, it wasn't, our team, but I was gonna watch, I said, cash, no cash, I said, I just wanna watch here for $8.
There we go. Can you hear me? Good morning.
Does he have his thumb? I think he's got it.
That's what Zach thinks. He was muted him.
You want me to text
Try it
him?
again.
I just keep that to myself. Then I don't have to worry about it. Can't be with the dates, and I think keep my age.
Well, I chatted with him too, but he's not seeing that either.
Absolutely.
Doesn't look like he's got his screen up.
There we go. You think I'm muted?
Tell him to check his volume, because we're broadcasting. I just texted his phone saying, turn your volume up.
Volume.
Can you hear me?
How about now? Try it one more time.
He's saying he's got his volume up.
Well, I just heard him for a second.
Okay.
My volume is all the way up.
I'm gonna have to get you a little bit louder, but I can't do it on my end because then I'm gonna get feedback.
We're broadcasting audio, so.
One, two, check. 1, 2.
There we go. Thank you. They're just gonna need to make sure they're really quiet.
Yeah, we're broadcasting audio.
Okay, and we're live on YouTube already, Mike, just FYI.
Okay, I can hear you.
Just a reminder, Mike's gonna talk with you all about your legislative update. If you want to speak to Mike, just turn your microphone on.
First, my first thing to him had feedback, so I had to turn it down. Otherwise, we're gonna. Okay. God, is that you? I'm sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The sun is shining, not here, but somewhere. Don't forget to silence your gadgets. We'll get rolling with a roll call, Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Bell. Curran,
Here.
Freeling. Present. Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman. Majerick,
Here.
Ott. Pittsburgh,
Here.
Walrath.
Here.
Werfel,
Here.
Yarborough,
Present.
Elliott.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have 9 present, 3 absent.
Thank you. I expect Alex will be along after a trip to a pumpkin patch with a young man who's part of his household. John's out in the field. I know, I wouldn't want to be doing that. I think Ray may have some other business today, but we have a quorum. So who wants to move the minutes from last week?
I'll make that motion that we discuss the minutes.
Moved by Majerick, supported by Volrath. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Requisitions?
Yes, good morning. Does anybody have any questions about the requisition list that was sent out yesterday? Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have Mike Crombeen in the house, on the screen anyway. Mike, are you ready?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I know you wanted to drive down from Lansing today, but next time.
Well, I always prefer to be in Southwest Michigan to Lansing. Tuesday through Thursday, when the lawmakers are up here causing trouble, it makes that a little more difficult. But you let me know if you've got any specials on a Monday or a Friday, and I will absolutely be down there.
We'll work on that.
I'm gonna just touch on a couple of different things that I think are sort of top of mind for folks. But if there's an issue that I don't get to, a question about something else that someone's got interest in, let me know, and happy to talk about and cover anything and everything that's of interest to the group. I'm going to start with short-term rentals. The conversation on short-term rentals is sort of picking back up. I think we're probably maybe a week away from seeing some bills introduced on the short-term rentals. We don't have a sort of final draft on what that looks like, but what I've been told is that sort of different from last session, these bills will stay out of the Zoning and Enabling Act. I know that that's been an issue for local government sort of at large, that the ability to zone these short-term rentals and have some local control is important. We think the basic framework for the bills will license the platforms. So Airbnb, VRBO, the major players will have to, be licensed within the state, provide information to the State Department, whether that's Treasury or LARA, on, what properties were booked for how many nights across the state. And then that information would be available to locals. And then it would also add a short-term rental assessment, essentially a bed tax to those short-term rentals. I believe as the bills will be introduced, that the bulk of that money will likely stay with the local community where the short-term rentals would be located. There is some conversation about Pure Michigan and other sort of tourism-related, places where those dollars could go that would have some sort of a nexus with the short-term rentals. And so those conversations are ongoing. I can let you know that the government relations folks for local units of government and restaurant and lodging and CVBs are all having conversations related to that up here. Sort of adjacent to that becomes interesting is there's a couple other bills out there related to an additional bed tax or assessment. There's one that received a hearing this week, supported by a number of local units of government, opposed as written by the Restaurant and Lodging Association and some CVBs, related to a 2% assessment, and then allowing the local unit of government to capture that money and use it for certain purposes. I think it speaks to maybe the larger conversation about, if you're going to tax the tourism industry, how do those dollars then stay within the tourism industry? Or in the case of the short-term rentals, we know that local units of government have a cost as they respond to these short-term rental, particularly sort of weekend incidents, the bad actors type stuff, right? So those conversations are ongoing. But we expect, I think, next week to see those short-term rental bills introduced, and these bills all sort of, I think, interplay with each other and will sort of be negotiated together as they all sort of relate to a bed tax and trying to figure out how those dollars can be used and who receives what. So I expect that to pick up here over the next 3 weeks in October. I should back up a little bit. We believe that session will likely be done by November 9th. That is early compared to most years. Typically, the legislature would take some time off for Thanksgiving, come back for the end of November and the first couple of weeks of December, and adjourn a week or two before Christmas. The presidential primary, the legislature passed a bill earlier this year to move up the presidential primary date. That was voted on partisan lines. And so the Democrats supported that bill. The Republicans opposed it. For that bill to take effect ahead of the presidential election in 2024, because the bill was not granted immediate effect in the Senate, they'll need to adjourn 90 days before the bill can take effect. And so that is sort of the rumor here in Lansing on why they would adjourn early. If they adjourn in early November, December, January, February, then they can move up the presidential primary to the February date on time, which has been a goal, I think, of the governor and the DNC. So at this point, it's all rumor and speculation, but I did want to highlight that we may see a shortened fall session schedule compared to what folks are used to. Septic code, I know that's been an issue that's been out there. I know I've talked with your public health folks on it. There's some bills out there on how to sort of regulate and treat septic systems and what does that look like. I think that the two parties or the groups negotiating that bill are very far away. I think there's some concerns from realtors trying to figure out, how this impacts, what might need to be done before you could buy or sell a house, those types of things. But I do know that is something that folks continue to work on and trying to at least standardize what some of those regulations are. My understanding is it looks different in all of the different counties, but I am not optimistic that we'll get a sort of statewide septic code bill passed, at least not this fall. Renewable energy siting. This is another thing that sort of picked up in the last week or two on conversations. There's not a bill introduced yet, but we hear that they are working on it. The high level piece of this from developers is they feel statewide that they're struggling to be able to get large commercial scale renewable projects sited locally. Obviously, the locals want to retain local control. Local zoning should be a function of local government. And so one of the things that's being talked about in a bill that we will likely see introduced here, again, maybe next week, is this sort of either or is what I'm told, where somebody could either get it zoned through their local municipality, township, city, village, or go to the PSC, the Public Service Commission, for siting for certain renewable projects over a certain size. The bills have not been introduced, but we're hearing that to meet the size requirement to go around the local government, that the bill would require for solar 50 megawatts, which I'm told is about 500 acres. And for wind, 100 megawatts, which would be 28 turbines. So again, all of this can change because we don't have a bill, but only projects over those size components would be considered. There's been some pushback from lawmakers, obviously very concerned about local control. I think one of the other things we're hearing very early rumblings of is perhaps if you couldn't get a deal with the local, village or township or city, instead of going to the PSC, could you go to the county level for approval? I don't know how real that is. This town tends to run on, conversations that snowball. But we expect that this renewable siting piece will be a major focus, I think, between now and the end of session. It's a weird coalition. You've got the major utilities supporting it. You've got labor groups supporting it. And you've got the renewable energy developers and the sort of green energy folks supporting it. Typically, the utilities and some of these other folks don't always get along on everything. And so we'll see where that goes. I suspect local governments will line up opposed to it across the state as well because of the local control component. But I would just maybe caution everybody that we don't have bills yet. And so let's see what these bills actually say. At this point, it's very much sort of speculation on this is what we think the bills will say. There's a water affordability package that got introduced this week. Admittedly, I am still reading my way through the bill package. Senator Chang has been leading a work group on this.
Mike, excuse me 1 second.
Yeah.
Commissioner Yarbrough had a question.
Yes. Excuse me. I would like for you to stay a little longer on solar and wind. You just said that the major energy providers support this going through this PS, whatever that service commission, the electric company, the gas company, the whatever else.
Yeah.
Support that it go through there.
So what I would say is, again, we don't have a bill, so nobody's officially on record, but the major utility companies are trying to get to a renewable standard, right? And there's talk in Lansing about moving up that timeline to, when do we have to be so much renewable by, and that conversation's ongoing. But I think their concern from a utility perspective is how do they bring on enough capacity onto the grid as they transition to renewables. And so for them, I think getting major projects, utility scale, wind and solar sited is a concern to them because they want to get those projects constructed and hooked up to the grid as much as possible. So, when I say they're supporting, what I mean is they're supportive in concept. This bill has not been introduced yet. So, but I think labor groups, major utilities, green energy folks, I think they all believe at some sort of high level that the timeline and process for citing these projects is slowing down what they would like to achieve as they transition where our energy sources come from. Does that make sense?
And then I would like to know, should we, Berrien County, be sending resolutions supporting, not supporting? Do you have a suggestion for how we should be involved in this?
I think that is a decision certainly for this committee to decide. I don't want to weigh in on what's best for each of the residents that you all represent. I think, you may all have different opinions depending on the communities that you serve. What I would say is that at its highest level, on one side, there is a local control aspect to this, right? Zoning has always been done locally. And so that would in some ways for projects over a certain size be changed, be different, provide an either or. On the other side, if the state does want to get this green energy on the grid faster, there are, different instances across the state where some of these large solar or large wind projects become sort of a NIMBY issue, right? Not in my backyard. And become sort of a political hot button and tough to move forward. So, I think those are sort of the competing forces on it. But as far as, where the Berrien County Commission should be, my job is to to provide you guys enough information to figure out where you want to be and then go advocate for your position up here. So I will leave what is the right position to you all. I will say at some point here, we will have bills we can look at. And perhaps the actual pen to paper, the actual bills will provide a level of detail that can nudge folks in one direction or another to say, hey, is this impactful? Is this, what does this mean to our communities? Should we weigh in? How should we weigh in?
Thank you, Michael.
Any other questions on the citing stuff? Okay.
Just really quick,
Hang on just a second.
really quickly, Mr. Crombie, is there any guarantee that, and I know you can't say this because a lot of this is speculation at the moment, but the Public Services Commission piece, it's plausible that by the time this gets into bill format, that there may be changes to it to address some of the locals' concerns.
Oh, I think so. I think folks are actively working on it. Local control has been a major concern. I think originally there was thought of moving all of these projects of a certain size to the PSC. I think what they're looking at now, and again, we don't have a bill, is sort of an either or. And perhaps the PSC process is equally as burdensome, if not more burdensome, right? Maybe it incentivizes folks to try to reach a deal at the local level. And maybe the threat of another body at the PSC, as a possible pathway nudges locals to, try to get to yes on some of this stuff and talk more about setbacks versus whether we want it or we don't want it. But we don't know. That is all speculation. So, my thought process here is I will try my best to get a draft when one becomes public, and share it down through the Berrien County team. But high level, that is the question: is there an avenue to cite certain projects outside of the local unit of government? Does the PSC make sense for that? What would that look like? And then what would the size and scope of those projects to qualify have to be to justify sort of taking away that local control? So, we'll know more, potentially even here next week, but that's the high level.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mike. Yeah.
So Mike, the sheriff has asked about, I apologize, I think it's House Bill 4438, collective bargaining.
Okay.
And I know I'm kind of hitting you with a surprise. Is that something that you're able to speak to?
Yeah, I can send you some stuff down on this. It has to do with arbitration during a labor dispute, but I'll have to get more details on it. But I can take a look at that today and send you something in writing to kick out to the group. I will say my one foray into this is that within this MCL Act, it has never included like higher ed institutions that might have a police force. And so I'm aware of it from the standpoint of there were some conversations on including officers that might work at a Michigan State or a Western. I don't know that LMC actually has full-time staff
Mike,
on that.
I think the concern was related to jail guards.
Okay.
Yeah.
And whether or not they are included in that process that
Yeah.
other officers are. Okay.
Yep.
I will do some digging on that and I can get you something yet today on it.
So to the board, I'm going to ask Mike to get you more information on this. Also, we're going to ask how much traction this bill has at essentially at the floor. And then I'll bring that information back to you over the next week. And this is one that I would encourage you to keep a close eye on.
I think, real quick, the Michigan Association of Counties, I think, brought that up this week. And one of the things that is in that bill is minimum staffing requirements, which is a huge concern. And putting minimum staffing requirements into collective bargaining. So that's, I think, what probably the sheriff is referring to.
Yeah.
What I'm referring to is that correction guard will get binding arbitration.
Yes, 4438 is the binding arbitration
Yeah.
for 312, and then there is another bill, and I think it's 4368 or something like that, and they're kind of together, and that's the minimum staffing requirement one. But this one looks like it has gone through the House and the Senate. So it is definitely one to have on our radar for local police, firefighters, and for correctional officers.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Sheriff, do you have anything else?
No.
Actually, Mike, while you're still here, I have a question.
Yeah.
Some board members have expressed some concern about moving forward with the resolution on solar and wind siting and local local input for that. And you said there aren't any bills that have yet been moved out of committee, or do any bills even exist at this point?
They have not been introduced, so we know that lawmakers are working on this. We know that this is a priority of the administration to get done. But at this point, the bills have not been introduced. Now, I suspect when we get something introduced that we may see a hearing the following week and that it may move fairly quickly. But this is at the very front end of the process. And honestly, from a timeline perspective, it becomes a little tight, right? So if you figure that hypothetically, if they want to move up the presidential primary, that their last day of session would be November 9th, and we are October 5th, that gives them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks to get through both the House and the Senate committee hearings on both sides and pass this thing to the governor's desk. So, I suspect since the governor wants to try to solve this issue, that it will likely move quickly. But we don't have a actual bill yet.
And what I'm wondering about, we have 4 more meetings before they end their session, maybe 5. Would it be wise to hold off doing a resolution till we see what these actual bills look like?
I think that is potentially a good plan, and I may be able to get a draft early, even if it's not introduced, but a copy of what folks are actually looking at. I think the other question for this group to consider is what is the resolution, right? So if the resolution is in support or opposition to a bill, then you should absolutely wait until that bill exists. If the resolution is, we urge lawmakers to, consider every protection to local control, sort of a more philosophical resolution about what this body may believe, then I don't know that you necessarily have to wait to move something forward that would say, hey, this is sort of where our group collectively is on sort of philosophy, and we'd like you to consider that as you consider this larger issue. But I will do my best to get you a copy of something as soon as something becomes available.
Okay, yeah, and if we were to wait, I wouldn't want to wait very long. But if there's nothing that's been put out, and I appreciate our philosophical stance and the reasons for it, whether it's on short-term rentals or any number of things. But Chokwe, you had a comment, and Julie, did you have something?
I just wanted to, it's kind of to the group and to Crowdmeet as a question. What is the precedent set if we begin sending resolutions based on philosophical ideology? And is that a slippery slope?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I say philosophical ideology, I wouldn't say, ideology like a political ideology. I guess I would just say, if you were going to weigh in on the larger issue of, hey, we know renewable energy siting is an issue in Lansing. You know, this commission values X, Y, or Z. We would urge you to, you know, keep these things in mind as you work on this process, right? And as far as the precedent for the body and sending stuff, that's again, I think, a question for you all on, you know, what type of things do you want to be on record on as a collective group? You know, how do you want to approach these issues as the Berrien County Commission? I will do my best to, whatever the group decides, however they want to move forward, to then sort of, you know, push that out up here and make sure that we're making sure that everybody in your neck of the woods is aware of whatever position you guys land on.
One more question. And then Julie.
Just to the group, you know, there's a lot of priorities that have bipartisan support that could start being brought to this board that I don't necessarily know if we want to go down that path. I think this piece of legislation, we should wait until the bills are out. We have a state representative and a state senator who's the minority leader. We could be asking these questions directly. And I think, you know, there's a lot of priorities of the Michigan Association of Counties that we could also be talking about supporting. So I think this is a bigger conversation than just this resolution, which references Executive Directive 2210, which was written in 2019. So there's a lot of conversation, negotiation that's happened since that point that I think we would be well served to have a part of this conversation.
Couple things. Given one of the things Mike said, and we've all experienced this year on how fast this legislature will move a bill and how fast this can happen. And it takes us a minimum of 2 weeks to pass a resolution. I think it's important that we let our legislators know our stance on this so that as they're crafting this, that they keep those things in mind. Doesn't mean there's nothing in the resolution that we have that says we're opposed to solar and wind power, because that's not the case. We just don't want local zoning to be taken away. And currently, and I will note, now make sure everybody gets a copy of this that wasn't at the Michigan Association of Counties, but this is one of the issues they're supporting or not supporting. And they gave us this brief this week, and a couple of points that I'll make as well that they point out on this is the PSC, the Public Safety Commission, is that what is it?
Yeah.
So Public Services, did public safety yesterday, sorry, was not created for the purpose of zoning. Only local governments have that power. And then all other energy sources have to adhere to local energy or local zoning and permitting requirements. So to supersede that, because we want to get to a goal at a certain time, if that goal is wanted by all of the public, it will get there. But to circumvent local zoning and regulations for any goal is wrong. And that's why we brought the resolution forward.
I just want to state to the group that as we're talking about Michigan Association of Counties priorities, and I believe this was 2021, Governor Whitmer made $30 million available to the state for community violence intervention prevention initiatives, modeled after the FBI and the DOJ, where the executive director of the Michigan Association of Counties is on this saying, investing in safe communities is critical, and Michigan counties welcome an enhanced state of partnership in this effort. So there are a lot of priorities of the Michigan Association of Counties that we should be supporting. Thank you.
So I will say, after talking with Representative Andrews, he said that he's been in talks with folks from MAC, and they are proposing certain language that would address local control, preemption, and things like that. And so I think it would be wise of us to allow for those negotiations and bill language to happen, because Rep. Andrews did let me know that he would be in support of, you know, the locals maintaining control within reason. And so I think it'll be wise for us to just wait and see what the bill actually says, because we don't want to jump the gun and do things that could, you know, ignite a fire that we don't really want to start, I guess.
Well, and I understand Representative, you never can pronounce his name correct. Paquette is also involved in discussions. And I think the minority leader as well. I'd be okay tabling for a week. Give them time to sort things out, but I wouldn't want to have to reintroduce it. I would say table it 1 week. It's that way it's in the hopper. It's just moved back 1 week. We don't have to go through committee, go through reintroduction. Just changing the date from the 5th to the 12th of October. And hopefully things will come into focus in that time. But I appreciate the request for some additional time. I believe that request has been made from both sides. It's my understanding anyway. And if it's a good idea today, it'll still be a good idea a week from today. Just a suggestion. Ma'am.
So this is a question of just thinking about the resolution and what our language of the resolution says. And I'm wondering, when we're talking about an either or situation, right? It either lands in local consideration or the state consideration or possibly county consideration. Do we have a model like that in any other capacity for land use throughout our state where it puts it in either or hand? Because I feel like you're basically creating two masters, right? Well, if I don't, it's in kind of that parenting idea. Well, if I don't get the answer from the one parent that I want, I'll just go to the other parent. And that that concerns me, hearing that. Do we have a situation that exists in the state currently that we could look at of the success or failures of that type of program? Does anyone know?
I don't.
So for me, I hear the wisdom around the table. I still think that from the words that I've heard from the leaders in my district, local control is by far what they want to see. So whether we table it for a week or not, I will still be supporting whatever initiative keeps local control in the forefront.
I would certainly concur, and I would be troubled if there is a fundamental change in the legislative structure which impacts the Zoning Enabling Act and which impacts the underpinnings for the Public Service Commission, which in all the time I've dealt with them, they have been a rate-making agency. And I would hope within the next 7 days, the folks who are dealing with this in Lansing can get that all together. And just as we don't want the state telling somebody who has a really nice piece of property on the lakefront that their neighbor is going to change that house next door and put in bunk beds, and they're gonna on weekends have 14 people partying next to them, the local unit should be able to regulate. And local units should not lose their regulatory authority, which has to be exercised within the bounds of sound discretion, I understand. You can't be arbitrary. But hopefully that won't be lost in these negotiations, and anyone who's in contact with our local representatives can convey that. But I don't see that we're losing anything by tabling this for 1 week as per the request. Ma'am.
I have some of the MAC papers too. May I give it to the Sergeant at Arms to pass them out?
How about I pass it around this way?
Okay, because the press
Thank you.
probably wouldn't want, but that's enough to for us.
Okay, so is that all right if we bump it a week without diluting our views on retention of local control, which I trust will be conveyed, and I think our local reps that watch our meetings and have employees who watch our meetings. So between them and Mr. Crombeen, who is right next door to them, hopefully that can get passed along without need to move this today, but with the understanding that it will be on the agenda for next week.
And that we would do that in the regular meeting.
Yeah. What are the thoughts around the horseshoe? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be not at next week's meeting, but
That's right,
I'll be gone. But I clearly question all parts of this bill, especially the aspect for local control.
Yeah.
And so I would clearly be in favor of continuing my signature to that resolution.
Right, and if we get it redone and dated for next week, would you be able to sign it before you leave today?
I will be out of the country, so.
No, today, if it's
Today,
dated
yes.
today. So that way we won't have to go overseas to get your signature.
Yes, we could go.
Okay.
Well, if it's in Italy, Mamie will come. So, maybe even Greece too, as I
Yeah,
understand.
that too. I'm working on that.
Okay, well, is that, what's the sense around the table? Yes,
I support moving it. I would also support the resolution and signing it if it was more directed towards what we've talked about today, talking about the broad idea that local control is important and that we don't want to cede local control to the state. The part of the resolution I have a problem with is the mention to Executive Directive 2210, which is almost 4 years old. And I think that it would be smart for us to update that language to be more reflective.
corporate counsel, do we need that language in there? I think that's kind of questionable anyway in terms of its validity. And I think legislative action in this context would be required to do a fundamental restructuring of the MPSC and the Zoning Enabling Act. I don't think we need it, but it's your call.
Yeah, I was not here last week when this was drafted, so I've actually not seen the language, but I will take a look at that.
All right, if you would, and then maybe we can get it ready, date it for the 12th, get signatures. I mean, we did a resolution at least once and maybe a letter about the short-term rentals. And that crowd, they're like crabgrass. It's hard to get rid of them. But you just got to stay on it. And so with this, you know, I think it helps to express our views as a board, but I'm fine with extending the 1 week courtesy. Ray, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, we want to just make sure that our voice is being heard as regards to what we want with local control, and at the same time, a voice that we support efforts to try to get us to a place where renewable energy is a standard. So
sure.
So yes, I support tabling this resolution.
You okay with it?
I am not okay with it. Couple reasons. I am okay with if you're proposing a change of removing that one whereas of with reference to 2010, I have no issues with that. It's the local control removal that I am opposed to, and that we need to make sure we put that stance out there. If we table this for a week and they introduce a bill this week, and then there are multiple things in that bill, then we're going to table it longer so that we can address all of those multiple things. If we let our lawmakers know our stance and what we would really like them to make sure they stay away from, maybe our information can then be in the forefront as they're drafting that bill.
Could Mr. Crombeen provide that information in the interim? I would not be in favor of a table for more than 1 week, one time only. Yes, sir.
I agree with Julie. I don't mind putting it off a week because I don't think that's gonna hurt anything, but once it gets started, it's gonna pick up steam fast. it's the governor's top priority, and she's gonna push it, and I just think we need to, like Julie said, get our thoughts out in front of our representatives ahead of what, because they're gonna have to look at this and collect information quickly, because it's gonna move that fast, and having our thoughts already there, say, well, you know, how we feel about it is to our advantage.
If we, in the old days, we met monthly, that would be a problem in a situation like this. But since we meet every week, and since corporate counsel hadn't put eyes on it, I'd be more comfortable having corporate counsel review it, massage it as necessary, and then plan to move it through next week. But with the understanding that Mike Crombeen will be in touch with our local electeds in Lansing and convey to them the things that Julie just articulated that I think we all agree about, whether it be on this or on the short-term rentals. And again, it's a balance. With the short-term rentals, you want people to be able to make a living, but you don't want them to do it in a way that is inconsiderate of the neighbors. And, you know, we want sustainable energy, but we also want to be considerate of the nearby property owners and the local elected officials in those communities. So that balancing, you would hope, is uppermost in everyone's mind in Lansing. I guess a week from now, it's my hope that we'll know more. If it's all right, corporate counsel can go through it, adjust it, get it ready for signature, and it'll be on the agenda next week. Is there any?
Is that a vote?
Pardon?
Is that a vote?
Well, we can have a vote.
I don't know what you're doing. We can't take a vote in here.
No, we
We'll
can,
do it during the regular,
So that's why I was.
we'll do it during the regular meeting.
yeah, we'll do it during the regular meeting.
And I
but-
would like to be the one to do it. I asked.
But since it came up here, I wanted to get it out there so people could be thinking about it. So,
And then when the time comes to vote, vote yes or vote no.
yeah,
Whatever
well,
you
it's either
choose.
gonna be a table for
About the
1 week
table,
or not, yeah.
Vote however you choose.
And a table basically supersedes everything that's voted on without discussion.
That's right.
So,
So discussing it now is good.
okay, that was the rationale. Madam Clerk, you have something? Wherever you're comfortable, as long as your mic is on.
Is Michael still?
Thank you, Mike. Can you you pass along our concerns?
Yes, and I guess the only other thing I would add as you all move forward on the resolution on whatever timeline that is, if once the resolution is passed by this body, whenever that is, if you will email me up a copy, I will hand deliver it to all of the local lawmakers who represent any part of Berrien County.
Okay, you'll have it next Thursday morning.
Good. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you for giving me this time to talk about the Board of Canvassers appointment. On the agenda today, you will see at the BOC that you will end up receiving a ballot to choose a Republican and a Democrat for the Board of Canvassers. This happens every 2 years. What the process takes within the election law is that we contact the local Republican parties, and if you have a split congressional district, then you have to also notify those political parties too. We ask them to give us 3 names and that for you to vote on. So in the letter to the local municipalities, we ask them, number 1, will you be available for 14 days for 3 state and federal elections? So next year they will have the February, a possible May election right now, August, and a November election. They also do recounts. We make sure that they're not running again for another candidate position, no felonies, and no election expenses. So you will receive a ballot. The one thing is, which is really strange, and the ballot will be yellow. is that the election law requires a ballot, but Open Meetings Act does not allow it. So it is an open ballot so that we are in compliance with both laws. So you will end up signing at the top. Right now on the ballot, it was asked of the, from the Republican Party, they are asking to appoint Deb Frank to a 4-year term, and the alternate as Thomas, and I'm going to spell his last name or I'll try to pronounce it, Magowski or Macigewski. That is their recommendations. That will take out Cheryl Warner, who is currently the incumbent, and also Larry Berghoff as the alternate. So we would have 2 new board members. On the Democratic side, which was requested, was Jess Minks, who is an incumbent, and they put them in order of how they required. Audrey Lester is an incumbent, and it will say that on your ballot. And then we have 2 additional alternates. The problem in the Democratic alternates, I also am requesting, so whoever comes in second, and they are in the order which was requested by each political party. Jerry Cirque was an alternate. He passed away. And I have a vacancy. It is going to be a very busy canvassing year. The Republican Party did submit 3 names. Mike Brown was the name for the alternate. He withdrew his name due to requirements that we need to move forward. So you will see that ballot this afternoon. And if you have any questions, please see me and I'll answer them, and we'll make sure that we can get this done. They would take office in this position on November 1st, and we have a lot of new members here that need to be trained. It'll be their first time, and they will be submitting for training. And one last item regarding the comment regarding your resolution as a former state rep. The resolution is great. Personal contact with your legislators is even better. A personal letter, because out of the 83, you get all the resolutions. They pile up. Do I look at them? Yes. But I'll tell you, as a state rep, when I got the call from a county commissioner when I'm sitting there, or from the treasurer, that I responded. But a personal touch means more to get that contact and make it happen. The resolution is great, but the personal touch will take you further. That's all for my comments today.
Good, thank you. And Madam Clerk, you have the phone numbers for the reps.
I have them in your book.
Okay, good, and a directory, okay.
I think we have some cell phones also.
And if you need a director, I have many more.
Those are wonderful.
Yes, yes.
All right, do we have any other business this morning before we break for committees? Yeah.
Just public comments.
Right, okay, public comments. Anybody have any? Yes, sir. Come on up and tell us your name and where you're from, and
Right here, sir,
there's
right
a
here.
microphone over there,
There you go.
so the World Wide Web can hear you as well.
My name is Kevin Amos. I'm a minister here in South Haven. I just have a question. I read in the paper where they have a settlement for the opioid crisis, what they giving out money. I have an organization called Carpe Ministries. I work 6 counties all over. I distribute Narcan. I work with Carol Hope, and my organization is new. And I'm just trying to find out where can I find some help to keep this thing moving. I've saved 2 people's lives over the time that I started this. I came out here on my own because I am a victim of that situation myself. And thank God to the police, they saved my life, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm just trying to reach out and find some type of resource where I can help me in this area to keep going in that forward of direction, trying to help communities over the 6 counties. And I see that I talked with Nancy King. I kind of know her. I distribute for her. And I'm just trying to reach out and find out what kind of resource, what kind of help that I can get to keep this thing going in the community. Because I understand in our community have been hard about the gang crime, and I understand those kind of guys. I understand them. I can work with them in all areas, and every day I'm involved with them in the area. And I know that fact that I can reason with them and make some type of change in the community also. I went to the chief of police a while back in Ben Harbor, but he told me that he don't want to have no part in that. And I kind of got me a little upset because I don't give up on nobody. We all have a chance to change our life. And I believe that no matter what we go through in this life, we can change. I just don't give up on people because I'm a minister and I believe that with my whole heart. I'm compassionate for people. Generally, that's what I do. And I'm just here to try to find out some kind of, where can I get some help from any kind of resource in the Barron County area if I can keep doing what I'm doing in the communities all over.
All right, very good. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay, other business. Does anyone have any? All right, let's go to committees and we'll come back in an hour. And corporate counsel has that resolution now.